He was 8 years old, worth more than most people would ever see in 10 lifetimes, and he had made 17 tutors quit in less than a year. 17. Some left in tears. Some left in silence. One actually ran out of the estate like the house was on fire. And the billionaire father? He was running out of options. But what happened next, when a struggling single mother walked through those golden gates with nothing but desperation and her 5-year-old daughter? Nobody could have predicted it. Not the staff. Not the security. Not even the boy himself. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any stories like this. Vincent Ashford III was one of the richest men in the country. His net worth fluctuated somewhere between $11 and $14 billion, depending on the stock market, and his estate in Connecticut looked more like a small country than a home. There were gardens that stretched for acres, a private lake, a helipad, staff quarters that housed 47 employees. But for all his wealth, Vincent had one problem money couldn't solve. His son, Ethan Ashford, was 8 years old, and he was, by every measurable standard, a genius. IQ tests put him somewhere around 160. He could read before he turned 3. He was doing algebra by 5. At 6, he taught himself basic coding from YouTube videos. But here's the thing about genius. It doesn't always come with kindness. Ethan was angry. He was cold. He was cruel in ways that would make grown men uncomfortable. The staff whispered about him in the kitchen. They called him the little prince, but never with affection. They said his eyes looked empty sometimes, that he smiled only when he'd won something or made someone else lose. His mother had died when he was 4. Brain aneurysm. There one moment, gone the next. No warning. No goodbye. Just a woman laughing at breakfast and a body on the kitchen floor by lunch. Vincent had tried everything to help his son process the grief. Therapists, child psychologists, art therapy, equine therapy, a grief counselor who charged $800 an hour. Nothing worked. Ethan didn't cry. He didn't talk about his mother. He just withdrew, built walls so high that nobody could climb them. And then he started rejecting everyone. The tutors were the worst of it. Vincent had pulled Ethan out of private school after the incident, which the family lawyers had made sure stayed out of the papers, and decided homeschooling was the only option. But Ethan refused to cooperate. The first tutor, a retired Harvard professor, lasted 3 weeks before Ethan reduced her to tears by pointing out every logical fallacy in her teaching methodology. The second tutor, a patient young man with a specialty in gifted children, quit after Ethan hacked into his email and read his private messages aloud at dinner. Tutor number 7 was a tough love type. Military background. Thought he could handle anything. He lasted 4 days. Ethan didn't yell at him, didn't insult him, just looked at him with those cold gray eyes and said, "You're boring. You teach like a robot. I already know everything you're trying to show me. Why are you here?" The man had no answer. By Tutor 17, a specialist in difficult children, who'd written 3 books on the subject, Vincent was desperate. He sat in his home office that night, staring at a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched, wondering if his son was beyond saving. That's when his assistant, Margaret, knocked on the door. "Sir," she said carefully, "there's someone here about the tutor position." Vincent frowned. "I didn't schedule any interviews." "I know, sir. She just showed up. Says she saw the listing online. She's waiting at the gate." "Send her away." "Sir." Margaret hesitated. "She has a child with her. A little girl. They've been waiting for 2 hours. It's starting to rain." Vincent rubbed his temples. He didn't have time for this. He didn't have the emotional bandwidth for another failure. But something made him say, "Let her in." Claire Mitchell was 31 years old, and she was running out of time. Not in any dramatic sense. No terminal illness. No countdown clock. Just a slow, grinding kind of running out of time that happens when you're a single mother with a master's degree in education, $47 in your bank account, and an eviction notice taped to your door. She'd been a teacher once. A good one. 3rd grade at a public school in Newark. The kids loved her. The parents trusted her. She'd won district awards. But then her husband left. Just like that. No warning. No real explanation. Just a note on the kitchen counter that said, "I can't do this anymore." I'm sorry. Don't look for me. He cleaned out their savings on his way out the door. Clara had tried to hold things together. She really had. But teaching salaries don't stretch far when you're suddenly a single parent, and childcare costs what it costs, and rent in New Jersey wasn't getting any cheaper. She'd lost the teaching job when she missed too many days. Her daughter, Lily, had been sick, really sick, with pneumonia, and Clara had no backup, no family, no one to call. The school had been sympathetic, right up until they weren't. For the past 8 months, Clara had been surviving on substitute teaching gigs and odd jobs, cleaning houses, walking dogs, tutoring kids whose parents paid $20 an hour and complained it was too expensive. But now even that wasn't enough. The eviction notice gave her 14 days. 14 days to come up with 3 months of back rent or find herself and her 5-year-old daughter on the street. She'd seen the listing for the Ashford tutor position by accident. A friend had forwarded it as a joke. "Look at this," the message said. "Rich people are insane." The salary was absurd. $50,000 for 3 months of work, plus room and board on the estate, plus benefits. $50,000. That was more than Clara had made in 2 years. She'd applied immediately, knowing she'd never hear back. The listing had said advanced degrees preferred and experience with gifted children required. Clara had neither, just a regular master's degree and years of teaching regular kids. But she'd applied anyway, because when you're desperate, you do desperate things. When she didn't hear back after a week, she did something even more desperate. She drove to the estate. It took 2 hours. Her car made a concerning noise the entire way. Lily sat in the back seat asking if they were going to Disneyland, and Clara didn't have the heart to correct her. The gates were enormous, black iron, at least 12 feet tall, with security cameras pointed in every direction. Clara pulled up to the intercom and pressed a button. "Can I help you?" A voice. "Bored. Professional. I'm here about the tutor position." A pause. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but we're not accepting walk-ins. Please submit your application through the proper channels." The intercom clicked off. Clara sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying not to cry. Lily's voice came from the back seat. "Mommy, are we going home now?" "Home? What home? In 14 days, they wouldn't have one." "Not yet, baby," Clara said. "Mommy's going to wait here for a little while." She waited. 1 hour. Then 2. The rain started somewhere around the 90-minute mark, light at first, then steady. Lily fell asleep in her car seat. Clara watched the gates and prayed to whatever force might be listening. And then, impossibly, the gates opened. Vincent Ashford didn't know what he was expecting. Someone polished, maybe. Someone who looked like they belonged in a place like this. Someone with a leather briefcase and an Ivy League education and a firm handshake. What he got was a woman in a Target dress that had seen better days, carrying a sleeping child on her hip, with wet hair plastered to her face, and eyes that looked like they hadn't rested properly in months. She stood in the marble foyer of his home, a foyer that had hosted presidents and celebrities and tech billionaires, and she looked completely, utterly out of place. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. Her voice was steadier than she looked. "I know I don't have an appointment. I know I probably shouldn't be here. But I saw your listing, and I had to try." Vincent studied her. The child on her hip couldn't have been more than 5. She had her mother's brown hair and was clutching a stuffed rabbit that was missing an eye. "You drove here," he said, "without an appointment." "Yes." "In the rain." "Yes." "With your daughter." Clara's jaw tightened. "I didn't have anyone to watch her." Vincent should have sent her away. That's what his staff would have expected. That's what made sense. But something about the way she held her ground made him pause. "What's your qualification?" he asked. "For handling a child like my son?" "I don't have one," Clara admitted. "Not specifically. I taught 3rd grade for 7 years. Regular kids. Nothing special." She paused. "But I'm good at my job. I was good at it. I made kids who hated reading learn to love it. I made kids who felt invisible feel seen. My son doesn't need to feel seen. He needs to learn. With respect, sir, and I know I'm not in a position to argue, Every child needs to feel seen. That's what learning is. It's someone paying attention to how your mind works and meeting you there. Vincent almost smiled. Almost. You know what happened to the last 17 tutors? I read about some of it online. The internet has opinions. And you still came. Clara looked at him directly. In his world, people rarely did that. They looked at his money, his power, his reputation. They looked through him, or around him, or past him. She looked at him. Mr. Ashford, I have 14 days before my daughter and I are homeless. I have $47 to my name. I'm not here because I think I'm the most qualified person for this job. I'm here because I'm desperate, and desperate people try things that don't make sense. She swallowed. But I'm also here because I think maybe your son is desperate too. In a different way. And sometimes desperate people understand each other. The room was silent except for the rain against the windows. Lily stirred in Clara's arms, mumbled something about rabbits, and went back to sleep. Vincent made a decision he didn't fully understand. 7 days, he said. I'll give you 7 days. Room and board included. If you can make any progress with Ethan, any progress at all, we'll talk about extending the arrangement. Clara's eyes went wide. Are you serious? I don't joke about my son. I thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Vincent turned toward the stairs. Margaret will show you to your rooms. You'll meet Ethan at breakfast tomorrow. 8 o'clock sharp. He paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked back. Ms. Mitchell. Yes. The last tutor left in tears after 3 hours. The one before her had a panic attack in the garden. My son is not a regular child. His voice was quiet. I'm telling you this not to frighten you, but to prepare you. Whatever you're expecting, it will be worse. Clara nodded slowly. I understand. But she didn't. Not really. She would, though. By tomorrow morning, she would understand exactly what she'd walked into. The room they gave her was bigger than her entire apartment. Clara stood in the doorway, Lily still drowsy against her shoulder, and tried to process what she was seeing. A 4-poster bed, an ensuite bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in, a window that overlooked gardens she could barely see in the darkness, a sitting area with a couch and a fireplace, and in the corner, a small bed that had clearly been brought in just for Lily. It had fresh sheets and a stack of children's books on the nightstand. If you need anything, Margaret said from the doorway, dial 9 on the house phone. Someone will assist you. This is too much, Clara managed. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Get some rest, Ms. Mitchell. You'll need it. Clara put Lily to bed first. Her daughter was too tired to ask questions, too tired to be confused by the strange new room. She just curled up with her one-eyed rabbit and fell asleep. Clara sat on the edge of the big bed and stared at the ceiling. What am I doing here? The question echoed in her head. This place was another world. The sheets probably cost more than her car. The bathroom had towels so soft they felt illegal. And somewhere in this house was an 8-year-old boy who'd made 17 tutors quit. She thought about what Vincent Ashford had said. Whatever you're expecting, it will be worse. Clara had dealt with difficult children before. She taught the ones who threw chairs, the ones who screamed, the ones who refused to speak for months at a time. She'd been bitten twice. She'd had her car keyed by a student's angry parent. But something about the way Vincent spoke about his son felt different. Not angry. Not frustrated. Afraid. He was afraid of his own child. Clara didn't sleep well that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those iron gates opening in the rain. She saw herself standing in that marble foyer, making promises she wasn't sure she could keep. 7 days. She had 7 days to prove she belonged here. If she failed, she and Lily would be right back where they started. No, worse than where they started, because she would have wasted time and gas and hope on something that was never going to work. But if she succeeded, $50,000. Enough to pay off the back rent. Enough to get stable. Enough to give Lily the kind of security Clara hadn't been able to provide in 2 years. She just had to survive one little boy. How hard could it be? Ethan Ashford was already at the breakfast table when Clara came down the next morning. She dressed carefully, professional but not stiff, approachable but not casual. She'd brushed Lily's hair and put her in her nicest dress. It looked like they belonged here. They absolutely did not belong here. The dining room was enormous. A table that could seat 20. Crystal chandeliers. Windows that stretched floor to ceiling. And at the far end of the table, a small boy eating toast like he was the king of a very boring kingdom. He didn't look up when they entered. "Good morning," Clara said, keeping her voice warm. "I'm Clara. This is my daughter, Lily." "Nothing." Ethan continued eating his toast. Lily, who had never met a stranger she couldn't befriend, immediately broke away from Clara and wandered toward the boy. "Hi," she said. "I'm Lily. I'm 5. How old are you?" Ethan finally looked up. His eyes were gray, cold gray, like winter sky, and they assessed Lily with the detached interest of a scientist examining a specimen. "I'm 8, he said. "Your rabbit is missing an eye." Lily looked down at the stuffed animal in her arms. "I know. His name is Mr. Buttons. He lost it in a battle. Rabbits don't fight battles. Mr. Buttons does." Ethan blinked. Whatever response he'd expected, that apparently wasn't it. Clara watched this exchange with her heart in her throat. She'd prepared herself for rudeness, for cruelty, for the immediate dismissal that Vincent had warned her about. But Ethan just stared at Lily like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Your mother is my new tutor," he said finally. "She'll be gone within a week." "Oh." Lily didn't seem bothered by this prediction. "That's okay. We move a lot anyway." Something flickered across Ethan's face. Clara couldn't read it. "Sit down," he said to Lily. Not an invitation, a command, but not a cruel one either. "The cook makes good eggs." Lily sat. Clara took a seat across from them, watching carefully. This wasn't what she'd expected. The stories online had painted Ethan as a monster in miniature, a calculating, vicious child who enjoyed breaking people. But watching him now, watching the way he glanced at Lily, like he wasn't quite sure what to do with her presence, Clara saw something different. She saw lonely. Deeply, desperately lonely. And she knew lonely. She recognized it like an old friend. The first lesson was a disaster. Clara had prepared a standard assessment, just basic exercises to gauge where Ethan was academically. Math problems, reading comprehension, a few writing prompts. Ethan finished the entire thing in 11 minutes. "This is elementary school material," he said, sliding the papers back across the desk. "I completed work at this level when I was 6. "I know," Clara said calmly. "I needed to see where you're starting from." "You could have asked. Would you have told me the truth?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "I don't lie." "Then tell me, what do you actually want to learn?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for a long moment. "Everyone asks what I need to learn," he said finally. "What curriculum I should follow. What tests I should prepare for. No one's ever asked what I want." "I'm asking." Ethan studied her. Clara held his gaze. She'd learned long ago that children tested you with their eyes before they tested you with their words. "I want to understand people," he said. His voice was flat, clinical. "I understand numbers. I understand systems. I understand code. But people," he shook his head. "People don't make sense. They say one thing and mean another. They have emotions that cloud their judgment. They make irrational decisions based on feelings instead of facts. And you want to understand why. I want to understand how. How do you know what someone's really thinking? How do you predict what they'll do? Everyone else seems to know. I don't." Clara leaned back in her chair. This wasn't what she'd expected. Not at all. The other tutors had tried to teach Ethan advanced mathematics, quantum physics, college-level literature. They'd been trying to challenge his brain. But that wasn't his problem. His brain was fine. More than fine. It was his heart that was struggling. "Okay," Clara said slowly. "Then that's what we'll work on." Ethan frowned. "That's not a standard curriculum." "No, it's not. But you're not a standard student." For the first time, something like interest flickered in those cold gray eyes. "How would you teach something like that?" "I'm not sure yet," Clara admitted. "I'm going to need to figure it out. But I think—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think the best way to understand people is to spend time with them, not just observing them like a science experiment, actually being with them, doing normal things. Normal things are boring. Sometimes. But they're also where people are most honest. Clara smiled. I'm going to make you a deal, Ethan. I'll teach you about people if you give me a real chance. 7 days. That's what your father gave me. Give me 7 honest days, and I'll show you something none of those other tutors could. Ethan considered this. And if I don't find it useful, then you can go back to making tutors cry. I won't stop you. A tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. Fine, he said. 7 days. But I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'd be disappointed if you did. The first 3 days were exactly as hard as Ethan promised. He tested Clara constantly, interrupted her lessons with pointed questions designed to make her look stupid, quoted studies she hadn't read and philosophers she'd never heard of. But Clara didn't break. When he tried to humiliate her with facts she didn't know, she said, "That's interesting. Tell me more." When he pointed out flaws in her reasoning, she said, "You're right. Let's figure out a better approach together." She refused to be embarrassed, and slowly, grudgingly, Ethan began to respect her. It started small. He stopped interrupting her mid-sentence. He started actually answering her questions, instead of deflecting them with sarcasm. He let her sit next to him instead of across the room. But the real change came because of Lily. Clara hadn't planned to involve her daughter in the lessons. Lily was too young, too energetic, too normal. She would be a distraction. But Lily had other ideas. She kept showing up, wandering into the study with her one-eyed rabbit, asking what they were doing, wanting to play. And here's the thing. Ethan didn't send her away. He should have. He'd made adults 3 times her age flee in terror. But this 5-year-old girl with her constant questions, and her missing-eyed rabbit, and her complete inability to be intimidated somehow got through. Clara watched them together and marveled. Lily asked Ethan about his books. Ethan, despite himself, explained them. Lily didn't understand most of it, but she listened with her whole body, leaning in, nodding seriously. "That's very smart," she would say. "I don't know what any of that means, but you're very smart." And Ethan, cold, calculating, ruthless Ethan, would almost smile. By day 4, he was reading her bedtime stories. Clara found out by accident. She'd gone looking for Lily before bed and heard voices coming from Ethan's room. She stopped outside the door, listening, and then the dragon realized that fire wasn't the answer. Ethan was reading. His voice was different, softer, almost gentle. The knight didn't want to fight. She just wanted to go home. "Like Mommy," Lily said. A pause. "What do you mean?" "Mommy wants to go home too. But we don't have one anymore." Clara pressed her hand to her mouth. She hadn't told Lily how dire things were. She tried to protect her from the worst of it. But children know. They always know. "Where did you live before?" Ethan asked. "An apartment. It was small. But I had a bed with stars on it. And Mommy had a picture of Daddy on the wall. But then Daddy left, and we had to leave too, and now we live in places that aren't ours." "That's—" Ethan's voice faltered. "That's not fair. Mommy says life isn't always fair. She says we just have to be brave even when things are hard." Lily yawned. "I'm brave. Mr. Buttons helps. The rabbit. He's been in lots of battles. He knows how to be brave even when he's scared." There was a long silence. Then, so quietly that Clara almost missed it, "I'm scared too sometimes." "That's okay. You can borrow Mr. Buttons if you want." Clara stepped back from the door, tears streaming down her face. She'd come here desperate. She'd come here ready to fight. But she hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected her daughter to reach a boy that no one else could. She hadn't expected to find something that felt, impossibly, like hope. On day 5, Vincent Ashford called Clara to his office. She went with her heart pounding. Had she done something wrong? Was she being sent away early? But when she entered, Vincent wasn't angry. He was confused. "I've been getting reports," he said, "from the staff." "I'm sorry, reports about what?" "About my son. They say he's been different. Eating breakfast with you. Reading to your daughter. not terrorizing anyone. Vincent shook his head. I've had 17 tutors in this house. None of them lasted more than 3 weeks. Most of them couldn't make it through 3 days without calling me in tears. And you're telling me that in 5 days, you've gotten him to read bedtime stories. Lily did that, not me. Your daughter. She's 5. She doesn't know she's supposed to be scared of him. She just treats him like a person. A normal person. Clara paused. I think that's what he needed. Someone who didn't see him as a problem to solve. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. He turned to the window, staring out at the gardens. His mother used to read to him, he said, every night. She'd make up stories about dragons and knights and magical kingdoms. He loved it. After she died, he trailed off. He stopped wanting anyone to read to him. He said stories were for babies. Maybe he just needed the right story. Maybe. Vincent turned back. I want to extend the arrangement. Past the 7 days. Clara's breath caught. You do. 3 months. That was the original offer. Room and board, full salary. I'll have Margaret draw up the contract. 3 months. $50,000. Clara couldn't speak. Ms. Mitchell, are you all right? I'm yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I just... She laughed, a little desperately. I didn't think I would make it past day 1. Neither did I. For the first time, Vincent almost smiled. You're either very good at this or very lucky. I think it's my daughter. Perhaps. But you brought her. That counts for something. Clara nodded slowly. This was real. This was actually happening. She had 3 months. 3 months to help a broken little boy. 3 months to save her own life. And she had no idea that in those 3 months, everything would change. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful and hard. Clara fell into a rhythm with Ethan. Mornings were lessons, not regular lessons, but the kind of learning that doesn't fit in textbooks. They studied people, body language, emotional cues, why someone's voice changes when they're lying, why eyes crinkle differently in a real smile versus a fake one. They watched old movies together, pausing to analyze characters. They people watched in the village when Claire got permission to take Ethan off the estate. They talked about feelings, what they were, where they came from, why they mattered. Ethan was skeptical at first. He approached emotions like a math problem, trying to find formulas and patterns. But slowly, he began to understand. He started noticing things. The way Margaret's shoulders relaxed when she talked about her grandchildren. The way the gardener hummed when he was happy with his work. The way his father's jaw tightened when he was worried, but didn't want to show it. People are complicated, Ethan said one afternoon. They were sitting in the garden, watching clouds move across the sky. Lily was nearby, talking to her rabbit about something important. They are, Clara agreed. But also predictable? In a way. What do you mean? Ethan frowned, searching for words. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone's scared of something. Everyone's pretending, at least a little bit. He looked at her. Even you. Even me what? You pretend to be okay. When you talk to my father, when you talk to the staff, you act like everything is fine. But you're scared too. Clara's heart skipped. What do you think I'm scared of? Being sent away. No hesitation. You're scared that you'll do something wrong, and this will all disappear, and you'll be back where you started. It was like being seen by a searchlight. Clara didn't know what to say. I'm right, aren't I? Yes, she admitted quietly. You're right. Ethan nodded, satisfied. But then his expression shifted into something softer. I don't want you to go, he said. You or Lily. You're the first people who feel like... He struggled. Like family. Like what I remember family being like. Clara's eyes burned. Ethan, I know I'm difficult. I know I push people away. But I don't want to push you away. I want you to stay. She reached out and took his hand. He let her. I want to stay too, she said. And she meant it. God help her. She meant it. But nothing good lasts forever. Clara knew that. The trouble came 6 weeks into the arrangement. It came in the form of Victoria Ashford, Vincent's mother, Ethan's grandmother, a woman who had, according to the staff, not set foot in this house since her daughter-in-law's funeral. She arrived on a Wednesday, unannounced, in a black Mercedes that cost more than Clara would earn in a decade. She was 72 years old with silver hair and cold eyes, and the kind of posture that came from a lifetime of looking down on people. Clara was in the garden with Ethan and Lily when the car pulled up. She watched the old woman emerge and felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Who is that?" Lily asked. "That's my grandmother," Ethan said. His voice had gone flat again, the voice he'd used when Clara first arrived, the wall voice. "She doesn't visit often." "Why not?" Ethan didn't answer. Victoria Ashford swept into the house like she owned it, which, technically, she probably still did in some financial sense. Clara heard her voice echoing through the halls. Sharp, commanding. That night, Clara was summoned to dinner. It wasn't a request. The dining room felt different with Victoria at the table. The air was heavier. Even the staff moved more quietly, like they were afraid of making noise. Vincent sat at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. Ethan sat beside him, eating in silence. Victoria sat across from him, studying Clara with eyes that missed nothing. "So," Victoria said, "you're the new tutor." "Yes, ma'am. The one who's lasted longer than any of the others." "So far." Victoria's gaze swept over Clara's dress, her hair, her hands, finding flaws, cataloging weaknesses. "And you've brought your daughter to live here as well." "Mr. Ashford was kind enough to allow it." "My son is many things. Kind is not typically one of them." Victoria's eyes flicked to Vincent. "What exactly is your arrangement with this woman?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "She's Ethan's tutor. That's the arrangement. And she lives here, in the family wing, with her child running around like she belongs here." Clara felt her face flush. "With respect, Mrs. Ashford." "I didn't ask for your respect. I asked for clarification." Victoria turned back to Vincent. "You've always been sentimental. It was your weakness when Elizabeth was alive, and it's your weakness now. This woman is taking advantage of that." "Mother. She arrived here desperate. Anyone can see that. She needed money, needed housing, needed opportunity. And she found a lonely man with a troubled son and nowhere to turn. How convenient for her." Clara's hands were shaking under the table. She wanted to defend herself. She wanted to explain. But what could she say? Everything Victoria had said was technically true. She had been desperate. She had needed everything this house provided. But that didn't mean she was using them. "Grandmother," Ethan said. Everyone turned to look at him. "Clara is my tutor," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "She's the first one who didn't give up on me. She's the first one who actually tried to understand what I needed instead of what looked good on paper. If you send her away, I won't accept another tutor. Not ever." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me, boy?" "No. I'm telling you the truth. Clara and Lily are important to me. If you try to take them away, you will lose me completely. Not just as a student, as a grandson." The table was silent. Clara stared at Ethan, her heart pounding. This was the boy who had made 17 tutors quit, the boy who had been called cold and cruel and empty. And he was fighting for her. Victoria looked at Ethan for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, not softening exactly, but recalibrating, reassessing. "You've changed," she said finally. "Yes. Because of her. Because of what she taught me. And because of Lily. They showed me that people aren't puzzles to solve. They're people." That sounds obvious, but it wasn't. Not to me. Victoria was quiet. Then she turned to Clara. "I underestimated you," she said. It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as someone like Victoria Ashford would ever come. "Perhaps I was wrong." "Perhaps you were." A thin smile crossed Victoria's face. "You have spine. I didn't expect that." "I've had to." Victoria stood, pushing back from the table. "I'll be staying for a few days. To observe. I won't interfere with your work, but I won't leave until I'm satisfied that my grandson is in good hands." She swept out of the room. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Under the table, Ethan's hand found hers and squeezed. "Thank you," she whispered. Family protects family, he said. That's what Lily told me. Victoria stayed for a week. She watched everything. The lessons, the meals, the way Clara interacted with Ethan, the way Lily bounced around the house like she'd been born there. On the last day of her visit, she found Clara alone in the library. I've made calls, Victoria said without preamble. About you. Clara's stomach dropped. Calls. Background checks. Reference checks. I know about your ex-husband. I know about the eviction. I know about the jobs you lost. Mrs. Ashford. I also know, Victoria continued, about the award you won in your second year of teaching, the one for innovative classroom methods. I know that your students consistently outperform district averages. I know that your principal called you the best natural educator he'd ever seen. Clara didn't know what to say. You were dealt a bad hand, Victoria said. And you played it as well as anyone could. I respect that. She paused. I also respect that you didn't break when I attacked you at dinner. You didn't cry. You didn't apologize. You just held your ground. I wanted to cry. But you didn't. That matters. Victoria moved toward the door, then stopped. My son needs someone in his life. Someone who isn't afraid of commitment, who isn't going to leave when things get hard. Ethan needs that too. I'm not saying that person should be you. I don't know you well enough for that. But I'm not saying it shouldn't be either. She left. Clara sat in the library for a long time afterward, trying to figure out what had just happened. Had Victoria Ashford just given her approval? Or something close to it? The weeks continued to pass. Clara stopped counting days. She stopped thinking about the contract, the salary, the 3-month deadline. She just lived. She lived in the mornings, when she woke Lily up, and they walked together to breakfast. She lived in the lessons with Ethan, watching him grow and change, and become someone softer. She lived in the evenings, when they all had dinner together, when Vincent started joining them more often, looking less haunted than he had when Clara first arrived. She lived in the small moments. The time Ethan helped Lily build a blanket fort and actually smiled, a real smile, not the calculated expression he'd learned to fake. The time Vincent came home from a business trip, and Lily ran to greet him like he was her own father, and Vincent caught her and spun her around and laughed. The time Ethan called Clara Clara, instead of Miss Mitchell, and then blushed and tried to pretend it was an accident. The time she and Vincent sat on the porch after the kids were asleep, not talking, just sitting in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Clara knew she was falling, not just into a life she never expected, into love. She was falling in love with Vincent Ashford, and she was terrified. The mini-crisis came on a Thursday night. Lily woke up with a fever. It started at 101, which was concerning but manageable. Clara gave her children's Tylenol and put her back to bed. By midnight, it was 103. By 2 a.m., it was 104. Clara was panicking. This was how it had started before. The pneumonia that had cost her job. The illness that had nearly cost her everything. Lily's immune system was weaker now. She got sick easier. She called for the family doctor, but he was in the city, 2 hours away. She paced the room, checking Lily's temperature every few minutes, trying to stay calm. At 3 a.m., there was a knock on her door. It was Vincent. I heard from Margaret, he said. How is she? Fever won't break. I've tried everything. The helicopter. What? I have a helicopter. We can fly her to the hospital in the city. It's a 30-minute flight. He was already pulling out his phone. I'll wake the pilot. Clara stared at him. Vincent, it's 3 a.m. And your daughter is sick. That matters more than sleep. He paused, phone in hand. Let me help, Clara. Please. 20 minutes later, they were in the helicopter. Clara, Lily, and Vincent. Ethan had wanted to come too, but they'd convinced him to stay with Margaret. The flight was the longest 30 minutes of Clara's life. She held Lily's hand and whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Vincent sat across from her, steady and calm, but she could see the tension in his jaw. They landed at the hospital at 3:52 a.m. By 4:30, Lily was in a room with an 4 and a team of doctors. By 6 a.m., the diagnosis came back, a severe ear infection that had gone septic. Serious, but treatable. She'd need antibiotics and rest, but she'd be okay. Clara collapsed into a chair and sobbed. Vincent sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders, letting her cry. "She's going to be fine," he said quietly. "You did everything right. You caught it in time. I was so scared. I can't lose her. She's all I have." "You're not going to lose her." Vincent's voice was firm. "And she's not all you have. Not anymore." Clara looked up at him, through her tears. Something passed between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. But it was there. It was real. Lily recovered. It took a week in the hospital and another 2 weeks of rest at the estate, but she bounced back the way children do, completely, joyfully, like the illness had never happened. But something had changed. Clara couldn't pretend anymore. She couldn't pretend that this was just a job, that Vincent was just her employer, that this house was just temporary shelter. It was home. They were home. And she was in love. But she was also terrified, because she'd been in love before. She'd built a life before, and it had all fallen apart. She started pulling back. Not obviously. She still did her job, still taught Ethan, still ate dinner with the family. But she was quieter, more guarded. She stopped sitting on the porch with Vincent, stopped letting herself hope. Vincent noticed. "You're leaving," he said one evening. They were in his study. He'd asked to speak with her. "What?" "Not physically. But you're leaving. I can see it. You're building walls." Clara didn't deny it. "It's complicated." "It's not complicated. It's fear." He stepped closer. "Clara, I'm not your ex-husband. I'm not going to leave a note on the counter and disappear. I'm not going to abandon you. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because I know who I am. And I know what I feel." He took a breath. "I love you, Clara. I've loved you for weeks. Maybe longer. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to complicate your situation, but I can't watch you convince yourself to leave before anything's even started." Clara's heart was pounding. "Vincent, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But please don't run. Please don't let what happened before destroy what could happen now." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to so badly. But the fear was louder than the hope. "I need time," she said. "I need to think." He nodded slowly. "Okay. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Clara spent the next week in a kind of suspended animation. She went through the motions. Lessons with Ethan. Meals with the family. Bedtimes with Lily. But inside, she was at war. Part of her wanted to pack her bags and run. Take Lily and leave before she got in any deeper. Before she fell any further. Before she got hurt again. But another part, a bigger part, kept remembering. Remembering the way Vincent had held her in the hospital waiting room. The way he'd mobilized a helicopter at 3 a.m. without hesitation. The way he looked at her like she mattered. Remembering Ethan reading to Lily. Calling her family. Fighting for her at that dinner table. Remembering what it felt like to belong somewhere. It was Lily who broke the stalemate. "Mommy," she said one night, "are we staying here forever?" Clara paused in the middle of brushing her daughter's hair. "What made you ask that?" "I heard you and Mr. Vincent talking. You sounded sad." Lily turned to look at her. "I like it here, Mommy. I like Ethan. He reads me stories about dragons. And I like Mr. Vincent. He gives really good hugs." "I know, baby. And I like that we're not scared all the time. We used to be scared. Remember? You would cry at night when you thought I was sleeping." Clara's chest ached. "You heard that." "Yeah, but you don't cry anymore. And I don't have bad dreams anymore." Lily's eyes were big and serious. "I don't want to leave, Mommy. This is the best place we've ever lived. Can we stay? Please." Clara pulled her daughter close. "Let me talk to Mr. Vincent," she whispered. "Okay, okay." She found him in the garden. It was late, past 11, but he was sitting on a bench by the lake, staring at the water. "Vincent," he turned. In the moonlight, he looked older, more tired, like he'd spent the week in his own war. "Clara." She sat beside him. "I've been stupid," she said, "and scared, and I let my past convince me that my future had to be the same. That's understandable. But it's not fair. Not to you. Not to Ethan, not to Lily, and not to me. She took a shaky breath. I love you, Vincent. I've loved you for a while. I was just too terrified to admit it. He went very still. You mean that? I mean it. And I'm still scared. I'm scared that this will fall apart, that you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not enough, that Lily and I don't belong in this world. Clara, but I'm more scared of leaving, of spending the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to stay. Vincent reached for her hand. You belong here, he said quietly. You and Lily. This is your home now. Not because I'm letting you stay, but because you made it home. You brought life back into these walls. You brought joy back into my son. You brought... He paused. You brought me back from whatever half-life I was living. Vincent, I love you. I'm not afraid to say it again. I'll say it every day for the rest of my life, if that's what you need to believe it. Clara kissed him. It was soft and gentle and tasted like tears, hers, his, both of them. When they pulled apart, she was laughing. What? He asked. Nothing. I came here with $47 and a desperate dream, and now I'm kissing a billionaire in the moonlight. It feels like a movie. It's not a movie. It's better. He cupped her face in his hands. It's real. The next few months were the happiest of Clara's life. She and Vincent didn't rush things. They built slowly, carefully, learning each other, figuring out how their lives could fit together. Ethan thrived. He was still brilliant, still intense, but the coldness was gone. He'd learned to feel, to connect, to let people in. He called Clara Clara now, never Miss Mitchell. And he'd started calling Lily his sister, not formally adopted, just in the way that mattered. Lily flourished. She made friends in the village. She started kindergarten at a private school, where she was easily the most social child in class. She still carried Mr. Buttons everywhere, but now the rabbit had been upgraded with a new button eye, a gift from Ethan, who'd researched vintage buttons for 3 hours to find the perfect match. And Clara stopped being afraid. Not all at once, not completely, but slowly, steadily. She let herself believe that good things could last, that home didn't have to be temporary, that love didn't have to end in abandonment. The proposal happened on a Tuesday, not a special Tuesday, not a holiday or an anniversary, just a normal, ordinary Tuesday, which, Clara later realized, was exactly the point. They were having breakfast, all 4 of them, like they did every morning now. Ethan was quizzing Lily on vocabulary words. Vincent was reading the paper. Clara was drinking coffee and thinking about nothing in particular. And then Vincent put down the paper. Clara, I have a question. She looked up. There was something in his expression, nervous, excited, terrified. What kind of question? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Not a fancy ring. Not the kind of ostentatious diamond a billionaire might buy to show off his wealth. Just a simple gold band with a small, perfect emerald. This was my mother's, he said. She gave it to me before she passed. Told me to give it to someone who felt like sunshine. Clara couldn't breathe. I know this is fast. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's exactly the right speed for something that was always meant to happen. He slid off his chair and knelt beside her. Clara Mitchell, you walked into my life with nothing but desperation and a one-eyed rabbit, and you changed everything. You saved my son. You saved me. You made this house a home. Lily was bouncing in her seat. Ethan had gone completely still, watching. Will you marry me? Vincent asked. Not because I want to rescue you or provide for you. You've never needed rescuing, and you've more than earned your own way. But because I want to spend every morning like this. With you. With Lily. With Ethan. I want to watch terrible movies and argue about which books are better. I want to grow old with you, Clara. I want everything. Clara was crying. She didn't even try to stop. Yes, she whispered. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped a ring on her finger. Lily launched herself out of her chair and tackled them both. Ethan, more reserved, simply smiled, a real smile, wide and unguarded, and said, Finally, I've been waiting weeks for him to ask. You knew? Clara demanded. He asked my permission, Ethan said. 2 weeks ago. I told him not to mess it up. Clara laughed through her tears. And did he? Not yet. Ethan's smile softened. Welcome to the family. Officially. The wedding was small. Not because they couldn't afford something grand. They could have had 50 ice sculptures and a symphony orchestra and fireworks, but because that wasn't what Clara wanted. She wanted real. So they got married in the garden. The same garden where Clara had first watched Ethan and Lily become friends. The same garden where Vincent had told her he loved her. Margaret cried. The cook cried. Even the gardener, who never showed emotion about anything, looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Victoria Ashford sat in the front row, ramrod straight, not crying. But when Clara walked past her, the old woman reached out and squeezed her hand. "You'll do," Victoria said. Coming from her, it was practically a declaration of love. Ethan walked Lily down the aisle. She threw flower petals with the intensity of someone launching missiles, getting most of them in people's hair rather than on the ground. No one minded. Vincent waited at the end, looking at Clara like she was the only person in the world. And when they said their vows, simple vows, nothing fancy, just promises to love and stay and try, Clara finally understood something she'd been missing her whole life. Home isn't a place. It's people. It's a billionaire who wakes up at 3 a.m. for your daughter. It's a difficult boy who learns to love because a 5-year-old with a broken rabbit wouldn't let him stay lonely. It's an old woman who shows affection through criticism and eventually, grudgingly, acceptance. It's showing up every day, even when it's hard. It's staying. 1 year later, Clara woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows. The big windows, the ones that looked out over the garden, the ones she'd never gotten used to even after all this time. Beside her, Vincent was still asleep. He always slept late on Sundays, the one day he let himself rest. She slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen. Ethan was already there. 9 years old now, and taller than he'd been a year ago. He was making breakfast, actually making it, not just ordering the cook to do it. He'd learned. Clara had taught him. "Morning," he said without looking up. "The baby kept me up last night." Clara smiled. "I know. I heard you singing to her." Ethan's ears went red. It was the only way to get her to stop crying. "You're good at it. I read a study on the calming effects of low-frequency vocal vibration on infants. Or you just like singing to your baby sister." He finally looked at her, smiled, that real smile that still made her heart catch, because she remembered when she thought she'd never see it. "Maybe both," he admitted. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She was 6 now, old enough to have opinions about everything and young enough to still carry Mr. Buttons everywhere. "Is the baby awake?" she asked. "Not yet, but she will be." "Can I hold her when she wakes up?" Of course. They made breakfast together, the 3 of them. Pancakes and eggs and too much bacon. By the time Vincent stumbled down, looking rumpled and sleepy and perfect, the kitchen smelled like home. "You started without me," he complained. "You sleep too late." "I was up with our daughter." "So was I." "Fair point." He kissed her soft and slow. "Good morning, Mrs. Ashford." She'd kept her name professionally, still Clara Mitchell to everyone outside this house, but she loved hearing it. Mrs. Ashford, like it belonged to her, like she belonged here. The baby started crying from the nursery upstairs. "I'll get her," Lily announced, already running. "I'll help," Ethan said, following. Vincent wrapped his arms around Clara from behind as they listened to the kids thunder up the stairs. "Do you remember," he said, "when you showed up at my gate with $47 and no plan? I had a plan. It wasn't a good one, but I had one. You had desperation and a one-eyed rabbit. Mr. Buttons has 2 eyes now. My son fixed him. With vintage buttons he researched for 3 hours." Clara laughed. That's exactly the kind of thing he would do. They stood there in the kitchen, listening to the sounds of their family. Lily's excited chatter, Ethan's patient responses, the baby's cries settling into coos. "I never thought I'd have this," Vincent said quietly. "After Elizabeth died, I thought that was it. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in this empty house, watching my son slip further and further away. And then you came. And I wouldn't leave. And you wouldn't leave." He turned her to face him. Thank you. For being stubborn. For being brave. For showing up when everyone else had given up. Clara looked at him. This man she loved. This life she'd never imagined. This home she'd built from nothing but hope and desperation. Thank you for opening the gate, she said. He smiled. And upstairs, their children were laughing, and the baby was babbling, and the sun was shining through the windows of the big old house that had once been so empty. Clara Mitchell had arrived with nothing, but she was leaving with everything that mattered. Not that she was leaving, of course. She was home, and she was never leaving again. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Sometimes life doesn't give us what we expect. It gives us what we need. And sometimes the thing we need most is standing right in front of us, waiting for us to be brave enough to reach for it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story touched your heart. And remember, it's never too late to find your way home.